Welcome everybody to Guitars Okay. I'm your host Mac, and today's episode is going to be special. And I just wanted to say thank you everybody for tuning in today. Hit the subscribe button, hit the bell for all the updates, and without further ado, I have Adam Miller on the show today. Thanks for being on the show, Adam.
Hey man, how you going? So good to be here.
Now, Adam, tell everybody first off where you're at and what you do for a living and where they can find you.
All right. Well, I'm currently in Newcastle, Australia, which is where I grew up. I'm a guitar player, musician, songwriter, and you can find me. My website is adammiller.com.au, the little bit on the end. And I'm Adam Miller Guitar on pretty much everything except Facebook, where I screwed it up, and I'm Adam Miller Music. But yeah, that's where you can kind of find everything from me. Yeah.
All right, we'll put that in the show notes, and maybe I'll even pop it on the screen here too. So now you're in Australia, so now we've got a little bit of a time difference, and we're able to work that out. So I am at about 9:15 Tulsa time. So what time are you right now? And I'm Thursday night.
I'm the future, so I'm 2 p.m. Friday here, and it's summer as well, so it's quite warm and humid, and I don't have air conditioning in our place, so if I'm occasionally just rubbing my forehead, that's why.
Yeah, we're freezing right now. We're in a deep freeze all around the area. 30-mile-an-hour winds tonight, 26 degrees.
Crazy.
It's all Fahrenheit, which is obviously different than what you guys are used to. But anywho, This is not the Weather Channel. This is Guitars Oklahoma. So what's the best way to actually get a hold of you if somebody's watching the episode and they rewind it and they want to email you or try and get in contact
just through the social media channels, or through my website, you can do that. Yeah.
All right. Do you do lessons or anything like that too, Adam?
I do a little bit, yeah. I'm available. It's when my schedule allows. They're usually one-off sort of things. And then I also offer that actually through my Patreon, which is patreon.com/Adam Miller. Just one word there. Yeah.
Excellent. Everybody get on the Patreon and check out Adam Miller. But I do want to plug your Spotify right now and any of the online albums that you have out there, streaming platforms as we call it now. So let's talk about that real quick. How many albums do you have out there right now?
I think it's 8 albums. I think. I looked the other day and I was like, I should check it. It's something like 8. And then there's a couple of EPs and a couple of singles and random things, and usually I'm first when you search on Spotfy and things for me, but there are a lot of Adam Millers in the world that also do music, so it is a little easy to get confused sometimes. And there's even another guy that does instrumental guitar music in the last couple of years as well, so that's great. He's awesome too, but can get a little confusing, unfortunately, with the common name.
Well, the thing to look for me right now is the Beyond Reason album, and I know that's probably not your latest album. I think, what was your latest one?
The latest one is called Gallery, which was a little random, but the one I worked on a lot was Beyond Reason. We can definitely talk about that first.
Man, Beyond Reason, I'm telling you, it's just amazing. I mean, I've probably played the song Aging, and I've Got to Fly. I mean, them songs are just, right now, just rolling through my Spotify, my Adam Levy, and you, and Nora Jones, and Joey Landreth, and you're like right in the mix there with that. And so talk a little bit about that album. Yeah, no problem, buddy.
Yeah, well, it's the whole COVID writing album, I would say. A lot of the songs, were written in that time. Fortunately, in Australia, I still got to play a fair bit in that time because we locked down hard and we're sort of back playing. So I had a lot of opportunity to play these songs live and work them out and sort of create things. And then I think we got put back into a really strict lockdown the end of 2021. And I decided to sort of get to work on this album then. And I've probably wrote about 35 songs in that time and decided to sort of concentrate on the things I could do remotely. So less intense improvisation and needing like a trio to bounce off, but the ones that are, I guess, just sort of more songs, like they could have lyrics rather than just be instrumental. So I got in touch with my LA band, who were able to hang out together and play. And we organized this incredible Zoom session. And, we kind of hung out online for a couple of days and tracked all this stuff. So it was really amazing.
So if you were to pick up the guitar, and you don't have to right now, but I'm saying if you were to pick up the guitar and play one song right off that album that you think would sum up that album, what song do you think on that album would it be?
Look, Aging is definitely the one that was the most special to me. And it is track 1 on the album, isn't it?
Correct.
I'm pretty sure it is. Yeah, cool. And just because of that thing, because it is this long story-like song that sort of evolves as it goes. It's the least guitar-y and the most guitar-y all at the same time. So, and it's just like, I don't know, it was just one of those songs that just wrote itself. So, and it has this really special production element as well. And, I even like sing backing vocals to the guitar and that sort of stuff on it. So it's a really special tune to me as well, that one.
So if you do it live, like mentally, emotionally, because I play live every week and stuff at a church and worship, and I hear a song online that we want to do, and then I have to kind of pick and choose how I want to play that song out live with who I have available and so forth.
Yeah.
I know you do the same thing because I love your live stuff and I love improv type stuff. So talk for a second, if you were to do that Aging song right now live with a little band, how would you change that a little bit compared to the album?
I guess actually it's a hard one from a feel point of view because it has this acoustic guitar in it, just a rhythm acoustic guitar that drives the whole song. So my live version is me approximating the two things. So usually the electric guitar is a little cleaner and I'm sort of strumming it as I go back and forth. And it's sort of an evolving process. Sometimes we play it with the same sort of brushes, drum feel that's on the album, so that train rhythm. But then other times we play it more free and almost jazz-like and sort of like airy. And I've tried it a few different ways, and I think the core heart of the song translates no matter what, and I just change it each night. Some nights I'm like, hey, so tonight can we approach it this way, and tonight can we do it more like the record? Or so it's sort of it's a hard piece to play really to get it right, but it's been a lot of fun trying to work out how to do it still.
I love listening to all your music, but since we're picking on that song, we were just talking off screen about it, off camera, about how it's in D flat, and then you're you're kind of moving through different aspects. We won't get into too much of the music theory and everything right now, but you're talking about Mixolydian and moving on. And I get all that, and that's so cool. But how important is improv to you when you play all these like songs live?
Look, everything is very improv related. It always has been for me, and I've always tried to find a way to incorporate improvisation into what I do because I really want to be able to express what I'm feeling that day and in that moment. So everything I write has an element of improvisation in it, that it has a section that I can, extend on and go through. But then, as I was just saying, we're playing the song differently every night. You can actually, I tend to improvise through the melodies and sometimes through chord changes as I go. So it's definitely been a huge part forever. Even back to when I was playing solo guitar, it was like I always wanted to work out a way to incorporate the improvisation into pieces rather than them just being these static arrangements that never change in a way.
Now, I was talking to Alan Hines about 2 years ago, if you know him, out in L.A., and he loves all his improv, and a lot of us listeners really appreciate it. We know like Joey Landreth and you guys are all on that level where you are keeping the song platform a certain thing, so we're relating to certain sounds and melodies, but yet you're taking it then, like you said, how you feel that night or who's with you, you're taking it then in a certain direction. And man, I gotta compliment you, buddy. That I've seen your live stuff and on YouTube, and I can't wait to see you in person live because that is so delicious, and I think we need more of that instead of just cookie cutter, basically like a track.
I don't think there's anything wrong with that, but it's just, it's just how I've always been. And it's almost like if let now let's get back to sort of the gritty truth. Like I know for me, like I often hear a song that I'm really inspired by, and often learn it, I just go, I'm just going to write something like it. It's like the lazy approach of like improvisation where you go, well, I really love this piece and that's their piece, but I'm going to take it and create something different out of it, and to the point where it's a new song, hopefully.
I love it.
Yeah.
Now, since we're talking about music and tweaking it and doing your thing with it, let's back up a little bit and find out a little bit more about you. So you were born and raised in Australia, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly,
Okay.
man.
And did you
Yeah.
come from a musical household and did you have siblings?
Okay. Not really a musical household, but was made to go to organ lessons from when I was 4 years old. And I do have two younger siblings, a brother and a sister, and neither of them are musical.
Aha, so you're the
So
oldest like me. All right, come on.
yeah. So it's just I I got forced into these music lessons, and same thing from the word go. I was just trying to improvise on on the organ, and it was one at like not a Hammond, like it was a Yamaha with you know three different. I'm going to say drawbars. I'm thinking of Hammond stuff.
A little
Little
lever,
tiny
little lever.
switches. Yeah, the oboe or flute, and then five drum beats on it that mainly all sound like bossa nova. And I used to just play with all those things and play with the pedals and change the sounds as I go and notate them in strange ways so I could remember how to play these songs when I was little, just with little strange notes. And yeah, it was a really awesome, fun foundation.
So how'd you
Mm.
get into guitar then?
Well, my dad did own a guitar. I guess he still owns that guitar. He was a school teacher, and I think he had to learn it as part of his education at college for school teaching, but he couldn't, and he can't really play anything. But it was in the cupboard, and I picked it up when I was about 8 years old, and I just saw the whole thing as a keyboard. I like, most people get on and learn shapes, but I just saw the black and white notes up each string almost instantly. So I was playing like melodies and I was working out chords, but not the common chord shapes. I was playing them the way you would on a keyboard with 1, 3, 5 and like close. Yeah. So before I even had a guitar lesson, I kind of worked out how the whole thing worked. So very lucky that way.
And
Yeah.
then I heard something on one of your interviews about a Suzuki method, maybe. Is that
Oh
true?
yeah,
Did you
no, it was
say
the
something about
Yamaha method.
Yamaha?
Yeah,
Sorry. Yeah.
yeah.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
yeah, and so the Yamaha, so that was the organ thing I was learning, and apparently, like it's more related to the ear, which is unusual for any sort of keyboard sort of learning. And I guess it was just a great foundation for me to start with. I can't really remember much about it. I probably should look it up and have a see if that's actually what it is. But apparently, it's more based on ear training than trying to read off the paper.
So eventually, now you're moving along, and you've heard some cool music, and I heard you talking about Tommy Emmanuel, which he comes to T-Town, and I've
Yeah.
seen Tommy Emmanuel a few times with friends and my wife, and he's amazing. So maybe you want to talk a little bit about that, and maybe
Well,
some of your
look,
inspirations.
super lucky early on. So I was, when I started learning guitar, it was kind of, Clapton was still on the radio and things like that. There was an awesome Australian band called 1927 that had some great guitar parts and solos. And I'm going to say within like 4 weeks of picking up that guitar when I was 9 or 10 years old, I think Tommy Emmanuel released his first album, like his first band album, which was called Dare to Be Different. And it was just through luck that my mum bought that cassette for me. And I thought it was awesome because it was really the first instrumental music I'd ever heard. And when I was playing along, I just felt like I sounded exactly the same, because I was still, my voice hadn't broken. I couldn't sing along to Clapton, or anything like that. But when I played along to Tommy Emmanuel, I just sounded the same. So that was basically it. It was just like, oh, I just love this instrumental music. I love the fact there's no words and all these things you can do. Yeah.
And so Tommy was like a legend or a rock star kind of out there, right, in Australia
Basically,
during
yeah,
that
like
time?
just
Yeah.
sort of a household name. Like he was the guy that played. He'd already been playing in every big band. He was already the number one session guy. He was essentially on our equivalent of like the late night talk shows nearly every week, either as him or as like this singer featuring Tommy Emmanuel on guitar tonight. So he was it's just mainstream. Like basically, if you say guitar in Australia, this was the early 90s, mid 90s. It was like, oh, Tommy Emmanuel. So
So he was his own wrecking crew.
yeah, yeah. It wasn't
Right.
just musicians. It was like common, yeah, mainstream. So it's pretty amazing what he achieved here in those times.
And then I
Yeah.
also heard as you were learning, listening to his stuff, and then you somehow you got out to play with him, and I heard something about you were trying to play one of his songs, and he like corrected you or something. You were
Oh, wow.
that's your
Deep
testimony.
dive, man.
Yeah,
Yeah,
right.
yeah.
Yeah. Go ahead.
That was like 9-10 years later that I first got to play with him and meet him, and it was sort of rock star moment. I opened a show for him, and I met him that day as well, so I hadn't met him yet. And yeah, I picked a song off a really early album of his before that one I got. And it's a solo electric guitar thing. I don't think he's ever recorded anything else like it ever. And it you can kind of hear how much that sort of stuff influenced me still, I guess. But yeah, anyway, I'd just worked it out by ear, off the cassette, or maybe I had a CD by then. I can't remember. But yeah, apparently I played it wrong. So he showed me the right way to play it. But that was cool.
So did you learn anything else besides guitar from him? What about how he acts and how he interacts with people and how he is on stage? Because I've learned something through my years of coaching and teaching, that you teach what you know, but you mentor who you are. And
Yeah, true.
have you learned a lot of them kind of intangible things from guys like him?
I think definitely with it's just the entertaining side of it, that he's an entertainer first and a guitar player second. And I guess just sort of having an idea of how to deal with audiences and put on shows. And so, I don't think he was the first concert I ever saw, but it was pretty close. And yeah, there's so much to kind of take from the way he is with an audience, the way he is, especially after shows and things, and the time he puts into people and listening to them and that sort of stuff. So it's so deep in my being, I guess. Yeah, it's something I've got from him for sure.
Well, I guess there's a lot of respect on our end from those of us that show up to a show, and that the people up there they're not just performing, they live it and they love it, and they're willing to like talk about it. Like you coming on the show, appreciate it, and you just pours out of all you guys. And like Joey Landreth still works his tables where he sells his shirts even, and you know what I mean.
Of course.
And
Yeah.
it's just a mad respect for that, mad respect. So when you're out there playing, are you like signing stuff? Are you selling your own
Totally,
stuff too?
man. Yeah,
Oh,
yeah, yeah,
man.
yeah. No, you definitely, and that's one of the things actually, because I've done huge shows. I've played arenas, playing in bands, and it's sort of strange, especially when you're the hired guitar player, I guess. Like there was one show in Sydney many years ago, which was an arena. I think it was Australian size arena. Let's say 20,000 people, like, which is, big for an Australian concert. But I remember, because it was within driving distance, I just drove to the show, drove backstage, walked on, actually took my amp, put it on the stage, played the show, and then walked back out the back, got in my car and left, and didn't talk to anyone. But there was like 20,000 people there. And it was a really strange thing to me. And it's one of the things I love about the shows I do, which usually around like 50 to maybe getting like to 250, 300 people. But, like the ability to actually connect with people and talk with people and hear their stories and, answer questions. That's part of the joy of actually touring and playing. So I love, taking advantage of that.
Well, I can tell already by watching you and your stage presence and talking to you now. through Zoom, like I can tell like you're one of these type of guys I love being around because like we can just take the conversation all different ways. If you want to talk about gear, guitars, music, how to do it, you know what I mean? And
Totally,
I
man.
love it. It's so cool because you're the type of guy that you're a good thinker. You've got a good head on your shoulder and you've got a heart to go with it. So
Hopefully.
I can see it in everything you're doing. So that stage presence is always a thing. You were talking about Tommy Emmanuel, and I have always found it interesting because some bands get a lot of flack. I grew up in the 70s, 80s, and MTV era, and there are certain bands that just stay there, they don't really move. And then there's shoegazing in the 90s, right, or whatever, right?
Yeah.
And they got a lot of flack, but I mean, I would always give people credit. I mean, they're up there, they're doing it, they're writing their things, they're doing their, I mean, you give them some credit. I mean, that's not easy. But it's another level when, like, when you actually can open up a little bit and you're not afraid to, like, say hi to somebody and,
Yeah,
you
and I think
know.
it varies night to night. Like I know I go in and out of what I'm willing to share on stage or have the ability to share, but I think genuinely like you can find people that just have that ability to you can just tell the music's in them and you regardless of whether it's they're outgoing on stage or not, you can understand like what they're getting across. Like, one of my favorite musicians of all time is Bill Frisell, and it's very rare for him to say anything on stage other than thank you and introduce the band. But you can just tell in everything going on in the demeanor that it's,
He's
everything
so
is so
intent.
genuine and yeah,
So intent.
so it's an amazing thing. Yeah.
I was listening. Actually, I had one of his concerts on the live YouTube. One of the many ones I got on my TV in the house in the morning. So my son's getting ready for school. My older son's getting ready to go to work at the air base. And I've got Bill Frizzle on. He's up there doing his thing, but he's just in that groove, man. He's so intent and he's so with
Yeah,
it.
it's
I
beautiful.
love it. So, so what other type of music influenced you? Obviously, there's Tommy Emmanuel. Were you into like Beatles, Rolling Stones? Were you into like anything else like that, really?
Not so much older stuff. It's kind of, I guess, talking like the formative periods of your teenage years of music. Like for me, so much of it was just actually Tommy Emmanuel. And because being in Australia and not really having musical parents or friends, I didn't get a lot of other things into my world. So there was towards like being 16, 17, 18, where I finally found some guys I could play with. We got heavily into things like Chili Peppers and Rage Against the Machine, sort of like really cool guitar-y stuff that could really dig into. And at a similar stage, I got heavily into Australian jazz of that period, which is pretty avant-garde and quite amazing. The guitar players I got into a guy named Guy Straz and James Muller, who's possibly one of the greatest guitar players of all time, but rarely known outside of Australia. Unfortunately, both those guys. And yeah, that kind of was sort of the foundational thing. And funnily enough, like talking about go older music like Stones and Beatles and things, at that same era, I was getting heavily into audio engineering and recording. And I went through this period where I couldn't listen to old music. Like I literally couldn't listen to anything pre 1998 for a while because it wasn't like, 80s and 90s music just had too much reverb on it. I couldn't handle it.
Too much chorus.
Yeah, yeah. And then going back to 70s and 60s, like forget about it. I just thought it sounded terrible. So it actually stunted a lot of my listening for a long time, I would say, until I sort of got over those recording things that I decided were, yeah, this standard I had to listen to. It was strange.
Oh, I'm just picturing you driving around listening to Rage Against the Machine.
Yeah, man. It's definitely still a yeah, like it's funny. I never really listened to the lyrics. I was just
Right.
listening to the music. Like I realized that recently playing it for my nephew, going, oh, well, actually, Rage Against the Machine's a good one because you can talk about the political reasoning and the things they're actually talking about, and we can look up stuff and learn some history. And it's not just saying the F word for no reason, but you know. But yeah, some of the Chili Peppers stuff had never occurred to me what was actually
The
being
best man at
attempted
my
there.
wedding went out to Los Angeles to Musicians Institute out there and was recording, and he was working at Guitar Center in Hollywood, and he used to work in the actual guitar section, and John Frusciante used to come in his like 95, 96 and would hawk his guitars and was in a drug problem, and Dave Navarro was coming in and taking over. So I'm a Frusciante guy more than Navarro, but I like both.
So am I, man. I'm also the thing of like, you're not allowed to listen to One Hot Minute. Sort of, you're not allowed to listen to that album because it's not Frusciante.
That's like Van Halen 3. Van Halen 3. Hey, here's a question for you. Let's throw this in there real quick. So I had an episode already, pretty popular one. It was the Van Halen discussion. So is it, classic Van Halen, Van Hagar, or Van Halen 3, which 3 normally gets knocked out with Gary Cherone, right? And so do you like listening to Sammy Hagar, Van Hagar, or do you like David Lee Roth, Van Halen?
I have no Van Halen listening experience whatsoever, so I cannot answer the question.
All right, you're exempt.
No.
It's all right. A little American stuff for you right there, right? Old school rock and roll. But anyways, I'm a little bit more mature in my palate nowadays. So. But you were talking about John Mayer, because I saw John Mayer hit the scene, and I was one of those guys, man, going, there's more to this guy. There's more to this guy. And as he progressed and got into like his trio, I was like, that's the guy right there. And my buddy at that time, he just did a couple episodes prior to this one coming out, was my buddy Jason Moynihan. Jason Moynihan was out in Chicago, and he was Buddy Guy's horn player during that whole era from like 98 to 2007. So that's when John Mayer was out, and he's a big Buddy Guy fan, John Mayer. And my friend Jason was playing with Buddy Guy and touring with him. And whenever John Mayer, there's videos of my buddy Jason on stage with John Mayer and all that. And anyways, John Mayer, I was like, man, there's way more to this guy. The fingerstyle, his rhythm, the way he thinks, how he plays. And I heard something about you being influenced with like the type of guitar he was playing, the fanned out.
Oh, the fan fret thing. Well, there was a little bit of both, man. So essentially, I got into John Mayer like the first album because a friend said, "Hey, man, you got to check this out. It sounds like you playing guitar on this album." And I was like, "Oh, cool." And I did, and it was amazing. And and definitely like the song "Neon" kind of really just blew me away. And I actually started singing because of that for a while, because I was so interested in the fact that part of the technical thing about that song Neon was not only was he playing it, but he was then singing over the top of it as well. So that was a really interesting thing for me to try to do and work on. And like actually from that first album, I was pretty blown away by the whole thing. And also, speaking of music you grow up with, like I think John's a couple of years older than me, but he's like pretty much the only songwriter I've grown up with. Like, it's like, oh, okay, the songs actually do speak to me on a personal level, lyrically as well, and even musically. So yeah, it's definitely always been a huge influence. But one of the big things was through John and the fan fret guitars. There's a fan fret guitar on the cover of Room for Squares, his first sort of real album. I discovered Charlie Hunter, who's like the man John's a huge fan of as well. And so when I met Charlie, that was like, that blew my whole little fingerstyle guitar world wide open, from the Chet Atkins and Tommy Emmanuel thing into the improvised side of things, which I didn't think was possible until hearing that.
So you were talking to Adam Levy, I think, about using your, the thumb. So down here in T-Town, we have bluegrass and everything around here. So that's huge around here. And we flat pick in, and then we get all the hybrid pickers and Tommy Crook, who Chet Atkins used to come get inspiration from here in T-Town. But explain to us a little bit about some of that, how you can even pick up a guitar if you need to. If you want to show some of the differences or talk about the difference.
I guess sort of the difference is that, talking culturally and the reason for things as well. Like when I was growing up where I live, even though I was occasionally touring with Tommy Emmanuel, if I went to do a gig outside of those tours, it would bomb. Like no one wanted to hear like that sort of Chet Atkins, Tommy Emmanuel stuff, it wasn't part of cultural relevance in the early 2000s at that time. Whereas playing like funk and groove and instrumental stuff, I could do that. And we were doing a lot of that in a band back then. But then my own music was all this solo acoustic guitar stuff. And, you know, all I had the technical facility to do was kind of do like those walking sort of bass lines and the boom chick, Tommy Emmanuel sort of stuff and Chet Atkins stuff. But opening at Charlie was like having the foundation of, I guess, more your fingers being the consistent thing in creating the groove, and then allowing your bass to be more sparse and, you know, lay down where a bass player would in a funk band sort of thing. So
pick up the guitar. Yeah. Go ahead. Right. Since it's Guitars Oklahoma, come on.
Yeah, cool, man. So
yeah,
on acoustic for a second. So
sure.
Instead of something being like, you know, like, then I would, I can displace those things and have the bass line like, and having that space in the bass line allowed me to actually, you know, play more interesting improvisational things rather than it sort of being a consistent thing. Like if you've got to do that and trying to improvise and which is cool too. And it's probably yeah. Or, you know, or then trying to walk a bass line, which is getting into the verge of impossible, but Charlie used to be able to do it or can do it, but chooses not to anymore. But that sort of thing where you've got anyway, so the idea was just that I could basically imply any feel or song I wanted on a solo guitar by thinking more about the drum beat side of things than the chordal side of things. So it just means that, so when I'm trying to put a groove on the guitar, instead of going like, I might go, well, in my head, I'm hearing boo, cat, boo, 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 boo. So then the bass comes, and then it's a lot more sparse, but I don't know, it's kind of makes better music.
Oh, it sure does. It's a lot more tastier with the comping and the bass lines and everything going with the melodies. I love it. And I always find it interesting. My son at 14 has been playing percussions. This whole drum set's over here and made regionals at 14-year-olds, knocked out high school kids, and we just played regionals. But the point is the people don't realize how percussive the guitar is and how percussive you can actually use it. So do you talk about like your right hand for a second? Your right hand, you like, I like hybrid and stuff. So you snap. You, of course, I hear it, but explain to some of the listeners what you're kind of doing as you're playing some of this stuff.
I'm gonna just grab my electric guitar so I don't
do it. What amp are you using there?
This is a 2-Rock classic reverb. And it's mic'd up because I'm old school. I don't even have like a fancy direct thing going on. So if I let me just switch this on.
Go for it. Good. Now the last episode was Chad Mangrum from Sine Wave, who used to be at 2-Rock.
Yeah, Chad's a great guy, man.
He said a lot of good things about you. He was like,
he's the man. There we go. So essentially it's sort of my idea, and especially this goes back to, it's a lot of reasons. It's like acoustic guitar pickups and all these things that happen, is that I didn't want to, and I was kind of, because I was holding my guitar funny, a little bit out of it then, but I didn't want to have that sound of like the thumb whacking all the time. And especially with the Charlie Hunter guitar, and people can look up Charlie. Beyond Reason is actually on Charlie Hunter's record label now. So, there's a whole big cycle to all of this. But, that the guitar that he plays has 3 bass strings. And then over the course of years, has had 5, 4, and 3 guitar strings. But essentially, if you slap your thumb on the strings like you would sort of playing guitar usually, that slap goes through the bass pickup and causes all sorts of issues, like you blow the tweeter in your bass amp, all sorts of things. So it was coming up with a way that to imply that 2 and 4 thing with your fingers going sort of across the strings rather than it slapping there. So, the exercise I kind of show people all the time with this is this idea. So the drum beat I'm going to show you is like boot, 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 that sort of vibe. And if I put that on the guitar with 3 notes with the E. So the first thing is the hi-hat, which is the do that with my index and middle finger. Then the bass drum happens on 1 and 2.5. Play the low notes for that. Then on 2 and 4 with my index or middle finger, one or the other. I think it swaps depending where I'm up to. You downstroke instead of pluck normally, so you get. And, it's not exactly consistent, but it allows you to get all these sounds and even like to have this percussive sound without having to hit the guitar either.
I love it. I love it. You're pulling these sounds. What I love about this is you're like maximizing the sounds on the guitar.
Yeah, just with the 6 strings that are on it, There's something to said for the percussion thing that a lot of acoustic guitar players do.
Phil Keggy does it.
Yeah, well, like Andy McKee made his name on it. Yep. Doesn't do it, but there's so many guys that are amazing at it. And I think a big part of it for me was just after I released this solo acoustic album. Oh, actually, no, it was before that. But I started doing a lot of solo shows on electric guitar for a few, like even doing clinics for like companies like Two Rock and things, where I had to play electric. Like I couldn't play an acoustic, and I was so used to playing an acoustic live and being able to sort of hit things every now and again that I was like, oh, okay, so how do I do this? And the result was that I had great sound every night, for one. Like acoustic guitar live just gets destroyed so often when you don't have your own sound crew with you. And so it was like, wow, if I just plug into an amp, it's so good. And then it was just so nice to have all that underneath you. Yeah.
So talk about when you're playing, like, I heard one of your interviews, you were talking about your bed, like you play softer levels, you were saying, and then use your like pedals to push like the gain or something a little bit, you're saying in some of your interviews.
A little bit, like for recording for sure. Yeah.
So you don't play at 110 decibels and edge of breakup all the time, or
who knows? Clean. Maybe. I don't really know. I play as loud as I have to, but a lot of the time it's not like I'm not instantly going to, where is my amp at the point of like blow up and that's perfect. Especially with my amps, for whatever reason, and they do change over time. I'm sure Chad, I haven't had a chance to listen to the interview with Chad, but I'm sure he talked maybe about this. But like amps develop with the player so much more than you actually realize. Like my Two Rock here that I've had for maybe 6 years now, maybe 7, like it would sound completely different to a new one or to someone else's that's had them for that period, just because of how I play and where I've got the knobs set all the time. It just develops and components age. So Yeah, find my amps sound better quieter. The occasional times I've either had the opportunity to turn this amp up more or have had to turn it up more, I don't like it as much as it being quieter.
That's interesting. I love it. So what type
Yeah.
of so you got your guitar there. Is that your main guitar right now? What's your
This is my main guitar I play at home.
at
Obviously.
home, right? Not on the
Yeah,
road
yeah.
because you have the other one. The Huber, right?
There's so many, man. This guitar, like it's a laminate, it's a Collings East Side. It has some acoustic sound like this is, and it's sort of really inspiring and great to play at home. And a lot of Beyond Reason is on this guitar, funnily enough. Like a lot of the album I actually recorded on this because I got so used to playing it. Even some like of the fuzz solos are actually this guitar, even though it's sort of not that thing. So it's come out on the road a bit with me lately because it's nice to have one guitar that's somewhere in the middle of an acoustic and an electric.
So what type of pedals are you using at all? Using any type of pedals? Are you using gate?
Yeah, I use
What you using?
well, my
Compressors?
pedal board is very small.
Yeah. Okay.
Like everything for me travel wise is how much can I fit in one suitcase. So
Perfect.
usually it's two overdrive pedals. It's usually like a Vemoram Jan Ray and a Free the Tone SOV2. They're sort of my two main ones that there's a rotating cast, but they're the two main ones that go with me most of the time. And they're both very versatile. So like the Vemoram has a lot of a very powerful bass and treble EQ. So you can actually really, if like my amp's bad at a gig, I can usually just, with backline and things, I can usually just really change the sound of the amp by using that pedal and run it on all the time if I have to and make it, quite versatile. And then the Free the Tone is kind of got a little bit more of a mid push. And it's cool because at the upper end of the gain, I use it really low gain, that pedal. I think it's the one I used on Aging for the whole song. It's just on the whole time. But then if I turn the gain to 10, it actually does a really good fuzz. So it's great just if I'm on the road, I can go, all right, I need a fuzz for a second. I just bend down, turn it to 10. It's great. I use a Strymon Flint, which is the greatest, trem reverb pedal. It's just easy and it works. It's got a great buffer in it when we're getting super nerdy. It works really well. And then the other pedal I take on the road is a Chase Bliss Mood, which gives me sort of the atmospheric things you'll hear on a lot of my recent albums. And it's a crazy pedal to look at and it's a crazy pedal to try and make work when you first get it. But I kind of have these preset. Essentially, one side is a delay and the other side is a looper, but it doesn't do like your normal start loop, end loop, then go over. You can only do one loop and it's constantly listening to the last, at most maybe 2 seconds or 3 seconds that you've been playing. And then it just instantly plays that in whatever you've got preset. So my usual one is that whatever I've played in the last 3 seconds, it plays it in reverse.
Yeah, I've heard that in some of your songs. Like
Yeah.
I think it's on the Beyond Reason, maybe song number 2. I thought there's a bunch of it. It sounds like there's some reverse stuff kind of blipping through on
So
there.
on that
Yeah.
song, actually, that is this guitar here, and essentially, the looper preset I've got for that song, it arpeggiates whatever I've just played through a digital clock. So it goes like
Oh.
it'll play it at one speed, and then it plays it at double speed, then triple speed, then half speed, then quarter speed or something. So I think I'm like, it's that line, and then I hit that, and
That's
then it
it.
goes.
That's it.
It
Yep.
goes,
Yes, that's it. Yes.
and literally like that's just done live with the recording. That's exactly how I play it live. It just makes that happen. So
I love it.
it's a great pedal for just kind of creating these like underbeds and doing it really quickly as well, which I used to use like like the Line 6 DL4 originally, same as Bill Frisell, and then a Timeline with a MIDI controller because that was a little bit more road friendly, reliable. But it's just a big unit. Like it's basically the timeline with the MIDI controller is the size of my whole pedal board. And for how often I was using it, it didn't matter. So just being able to play something quick, and then unfortunately I don't have it set up now, but being able to play something quick and then just hit a button, and then you've got instant this thing floating in the background. It's really cool, and it makes for a better performance as well. You're not watching me play through pedals. Yeah.
It seemed like a good idea. I think it was a song, the second song.
Yeah.
And then I saw Bill Frisell as I was watching his video, one of his live ones, and I could have swore I heard something similar on one of his songs.
Well, that's the
live.
thing, man. He uses the DL4, and Bill was definitely how I found these sounds. Like, it was hearing him do it and then going, wow. Like, I just thought it was studio tricks when I first heard it, and then
Right.
I saw another guitar player do it live, and I was just blown away that, you could actually do that in the moment. And yeah, and it became a huge part of my sound for a while, and then I sort of let it go, and this mood thing. And then, well, the last album I've just put out is all that stuff again. It's kind of totally based on that idea. So I've dug myself into a giant pedal board hole right now.
I love it.
Anyway.
Like Joe, you don't have a big one like Joey Landreth does. I've seen his, man. Holy cow.
There's definitely that, but
The wet, dry, wet rig.
Well, there's that rig, which is nuts. But so the last record, the record I put out just before Christmas, is called Gallery, and I was halfway through recording Beyond Reason, and I had a gig. I went and did this gig in a gallery, and just decided I was sick of all my songs, didn't want to play anything, and I was just going to make up everything on the spot and create this atmospheric thing and take the big timeline sort of looping thing out and create these things. And that was it. I did the gig, whatever. A year and a half later, I listened to the recording. I recorded it properly. I don't even know why I did it. And I was like, wow, this is actually really cool. So yeah, that was the last album I put out. And I've been shooting videos, and they're coming out sporadically at the moment from that session. And I've basically had to learn, and I haven't done it exactly, but I've roughly learned what I did, but I've had to learn how on earth did I make these sounds in the moment, because I was just there. The gig was so relaxed. I was talking to people while I was playing. You can kind of hear it just loosely in the background.
Really?
But like it was so
I have
relaxed.
heard it. Wait, I have had it playing in the background. Like, I swore that I have had that album going. And I swore I heard talking at one point.
Yeah, there's just little bits here and there.
Like a woman's voice or something, or...
Yeah, I think the gallery owner was talking a bit. There's little moments of like chuckling. And because I just recorded it like with a mic in front of the amp and a little portable recorder with stereo mics, so that I left that all there just because it was a vibe. But yeah, in the moment, I'm sure, what's the song called? I just did the video for it. It's called Exhibition. Mm-hmm. Essentially, I'm pretty sure in the moment I was talking to someone about the pedals and showing them all the things it could do. And so I'm kind of switching on these really sort of dumb sounds, which I think are kind of funny in the moment, but I'm pretty sure I was talking to someone going, oh yeah, this pedal, you can kind of do like an octave with it or upper, and I was just showing them. So yeah, anyway.
Adam, that's genius, man. I absolutely love it, man. Kudos to you, brother.
No, thanks, man. It was just what I'd been wanting to do, a solo electric album like that for a long time, but I could never commit to it. I just was too perfectionist to sit down and do it in a studio or at home, and this just came up by chance, and it's really cool.
Fantastic.
And now I'm sort of reverse engineering all those songs so I can play them live.
I love it. So that's Gallery. So people out there wondering what it is Gallery, and that's the newest one, 2023 release. I'm looking at it on Spotify at the moment, and that's when I have so many. I'm guilty of putting so many into a playlist there, just letting them run that, in the background all day doing stuff, and I'm like, I don't even know what album I'm listening to right now. I just know it's Adam Miller. Man. It's like, I know it's Adam Miller, and I know your newer stuff compared to the older stuff. So let's take a second and talk about, did you have any college education, anything like that at all? Did you bother with any of that, or no?
There wasn't too much in the way of contemporary music education near me. So I did a year of classical guitar at university and doing music, but it was to change to a more sound engineering based degree actually at the time. And yeah, and then I lectured and, sort of like a professor of guitar at a university for 9 years. After
Wow.
that, in the University of Newcastle, I did that for years. And I probably learnt more in that time than I would have been taught.
You know what? You know
Trying
what?
to stay one step ahead.
When I was teaching grad assistant undergrad stuff at college, and then coaching for 20 something years in soccer, football, maybe you call it, I don't know there. But anyways, the best tool I have is the pause. It's like when you're teaching, and I feel like the music I get addicted to has a lot of that. The Adam Levy's and the Bill Frizzle, I'm sorry, and then you're playing and Alan Hines and some of the Schofield stuff out there, and it's like, and some of the older Allman Brothers, even as they're improv.
Yeah.
There's that like room to kind of breathe a little bit,
And
you know
think
what I mean?
a little bit. Yeah.
Yeah, and it kind of draws out the improv, and so let's finish discussing some more about your what you use. So you've got that guitar, you've got the other one, right? You want to hold that other one up real quick?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah,
Give me a sec. Yeah, so
sure, go for it.
This has been sort of the main guitar for many years. And this
There it
is.
is.
Yeah. So this is the. Will that focus? I think it will.
Yeah.
Beautifully. So this is the Nik Huber Rietbergen Adam Miller model. And this is the first one they made. And it was never meant to be a signature model, just people started ordering them. So that's cool. So essentially, it's a Californian redwood top. It's a hollow body, mahogany back, mahogany neck. On my personal guitar, the back is actually, and sides are all one piece entirely. So, the whole thing sort of routed, CNC'd out, leaves a block down the center. And the idea essentially of this was a giant Telecaster. Like it looks like a 335, but the idea was that it would be, they're a long scale length. They're 25.5 inch, like a Fender. The pickups in this are Lola gold foils, so they're single coil. And that was the idea. It was like just this giant Telecaster that would be super comfy to play and has kind of all those. If I remove my mic for a second.
There you go. Yep.
Yeah, so it does all those twang
Nice.
things, but it's just a big fat sounding guitar. So
What size strings you use on that?
this 11 to 49 is on all my electric guitars. So
Pretty thick.
yeah,
You use a certain style. You use flat wounds, Diodarios.
just standard D'Addario usually. Sometimes I go for the NYXL, which are a little bit brighter. They've got a little like a upper mid push to them. Those ones. But yeah, usually just the normal D'Addario, whatever they XL.
Yeah, XL11
sort of,
gauge.
Yeah, basically. And I change them a lot. I tend to destroy strings. Basically, I don't look like I push hard, but I think I must more than I think I do. So I develop like pretty heavy dints under the frets, and so the intonation sort of goes out pretty quickly for me. And then Australian summer, like I'm changing them every set almost at the moment. So
are you flipping between the pickups during songs, like maybe verse type stuff on one pickup, punching through on other
I
ones?
generally just live on the neck pickup 95% of the time.
Interesting.
Usually on an album, I try to play at least one song with the bridge pickup, but I've got a feeling like on Beyond Reason, I didn't even do that. I think that, because half the album is this guitar, half the album is the Collings I was just playing, just has a neck pickup. And then I think my Telly made one song, my Thin Line, that I built years ago. Yeah, so, but yeah, most of the time I just live on the neck pickup and kind of think of the guitar as more like, the acoustic guitar is so foundational to me that I'm always just thinking, well, how do I change the sound without doing anything? So that's sort of been the thing. Like if I want it to be brighter, I just tend to play near
Your
the bridge.
positioning, your
Yeah,
positioning of where you're
yeah.
playing and
Just
stuff. Yeah.
make the guitar sound the way I want to, rather than thinking about the bridge pickup. And the bridge pickup for me has always been this thing of like, in my head, it's either I'm trying to sound like Robin Ford or I'm trying to sound like John Schofield. It's really hard for me to work out how I sound on the bridge pickup. So yeah, it's a strange thing.
Those are two good guys, anyways.
Yeah. Good things to try to be, but I don't succeed either way. So
why don't you just throw Larry Carlton in there?
Yeah.
I mean, but yeah, it's funny the neck, because so many guys that I watch now and stuff like Alan Hines and Schofield and all them guys, they're on the bridge pickup so much, with punching through, just with that mid punch kind of thing that it offers, right? With their Strat styles and their exotics.
Yeah, I
and all
definitely
that stuff.
play with too much bass and too much neck vibe, but it comes back to that like acoustic thing and that solo playing we were talking about earlier, where I want to hear that I'm the bass player.
Right.
I'm so used to thinking like, yeah. So
I
I'm
love
definitely
it.
guilty of getting in the bass player's way too often.
That's hilarious. Like Stevie Ray Vaughan used to use, I think a lot of his stuff was up on the neck a lot too. You know what I
Oh,
mean?
of course,
So
yeah, man.
Stevie,
Yeah.
all that Stevie, all the Lenny sound and all that type of stuff was great. But so anyways, you got your guitars there. You've got a couple pedals. You said I did. Are you using any type of reverb on the amps at all on your two rocks? Are you using
yeah,
anything?
definitely. If I've got this big guy, the classic reverb, I'll use the reverb on that. Like what you're hearing today is just the reverb,
That's what I thought.
that reverb sounds amazing. So yeah,
Yeah, two rock.
uh,
What a good amp, man, huh?
yeah. I I've been playing them since 2007, I think. So it's kind of one of those things where I just don't look for anything else. There's no need to change anything from that point of
How
view.
many two
So
rocks do you have? You have a couple of them?
I have a couple here. There's another one behind me there, which is like sort of, it's the Burnside. It's more sort of like a tweed Fender vibe. So it doesn't have reverb. So if I'm using that amp, I use the Flint for sure. Actually, that's the amp that was used on Aging. Talking about that song again, I use that little guy. And then I have a couple in America as well, in the US. One that lives in LA, a Studio Signature, a little sort of combo as well for when I'm there, which
Now,
was yeah.
Now you've traveled a bunch now, and you've come to America a bunch, and I know you're talking about traveling, so having an amp there is probably good for you, but when you travel, you trying to take one guitar, two guitars? How many guitars do you normally travel with when you come to play?
At most two, usually an acoustic and an electric. Like that's usually what I'm sort of having to take on the road. Some of my shows are still very much acoustic based, so people want to hear me play acoustic guitar, even though I haven't released an album in that vein for a long time. And then obviously then the electric guitar. But yeah, it's hard, like international travel, and then trying to fit the very small amount of pedals and then vinyl and things in suitcases. It's I try to travel as light as possible. So
I don't blame you.
I'm back in the US next week, and I haven't decided what's coming with me yet. So we'll see.
I love it. It's so great, and I know you were talking before in another interview about if you had 3 or 4 or 5 guitars, you probably would just pick one up, dial it in, and probably just basically use that one guitar most of the night, anyways, right?
Yeah.
So what's the point in having like 10 guitars?
Yeah, I look, it'd be a nice thing to have, but I definitely have that issue when I'm at home going, oh, which guitar am I going to take and how many am I going to take tonight just because I can? And I'm guilty of definitely taking too many, but it's nice when you're on the road to have that sort of relationship with just one guitar. I think it's really cool. So it would be nice to get to the stage of just having one guitar, but I think even for the foreseeable future, I'll be having to at least take an electric and an acoustic of some variety.
We need to get you
Yeah.
out to T-Town. You can play. You can bring whatever you want, man. I'll hook you up. Come
Yeah,
on.
yeah, awesome, awesome.
Come out a
Yeah,
lowdown or something. Get you out here
yeah,
playing. Yeah, I love it. So now, what's on your radar right now as far as short term, meaning the next 6 months or so?
yeah, yeah. I There's a bit of touring going on, so I'm back in the States just for a little bit, like with the NAMM show coming up in Anaheim in Los Angeles. So there next week, and then a show in LA. A few other sort of press things, then a little bit of touring in Australia through February and March. I am teaching at a camp with Tommy Emmanuel in March in Australia. So he's got his camp here. So I'm one of the teachers there. So that'll be pretty awesome. Then back to the States, I think around April, May, do some more shows through there. And yeah, just work it out after that and keep recordings. There's nothing too firm just yet. Everything's a little up in the air this year so far.
Do you have any other artists that maybe you might be working with, or maybe you want to work with, maybe in the next year or two?
Uh, to be honest, I haven't really thought about that. Yeah, there's no one that I'm openly working with. I'm hoping, there's especially one of the things I would love to do. Unfortunately, most of my touring, well, is solo. So like when I'm out performing on the road, it's usually just me covering all those parts. But it would be nice to work with some different bass players and drummers, especially around the US. There's a lot of, especially like the guys I've heard on recordings my whole life that I'd love to actually, get to play with and actually, hang out and make music. So that would definitely be a goal for this year, to be able to get out with some sort of trio more. Yeah.
Yeah, that'd be great. Is there anybody
Mm.
offhand you want to give a name or anything? Somebody
Look,
you're thinking of?
man, like my LA band are phenomenal. The guys that played on Beyond Reason and Unify, those albums, so Joel Gottschalk, bass player, incredible. He's just, the feel is just unbelievable. He was played with Philip Sace for a long time, so he's in a lot of Philip's like online
Yeah.
videos and things. But Joel's just so amazing. And then Justin Glasgow has played drums for me, who's predominantly a producer in LA, and producing huge, sort of indie pop sort of stuff. But he's just so musical and just translates my music so well. So doing more with them would be awesome. I've always got to mention Andy Hess in New York as a bass player, who I first heard on John Schofield albums, and then I think the first time I saw him play was with Robin Ford, and then he's long played with our mutual friend Adam Levy. He's long played with Adam, so I got to do a show with Adam and Andy actually in New York back in October, I guess it was. It was actually filling in for Adam's drummer. I was on guitar. I wasn't playing drums, but the drummer couldn't do the gig last minute, and he's like, "Oh, do you want to come and just play guitar for us on it?" And that was just a magical night. So
Is there a video of that? That would be so cool.
I don't really know if there's much evidence.
Man.
It was just a little club in New York, and we had a ball, and it was sort of over before it started, but it was it was
That
just
sounds
so
like it'd
much
be a
fun
good night.
yeah, it was great. We're mainly doing Adam's like singing songs, so he was singing. It wasn't his instrumental jazz stuff as much, but it was just we just had a great time, and those guys are just Andy and Adam just heroes of mine. So being able to be on stage with both of them in New York City was really special. Yeah.
That's pretty amazing. I love it. So now that now you kind of covered some of the short term here this year, would you like to do any type of albums down the road? You got anything else, Stern, or is it just not on the radar right now?
There's so much music I have right now. It's just coordinating the time to do it and the players.
Wow.
So like I Beyond Reason was like, is it 8 songs in the end?
Let's see. I got it right here. Let's see. Wait, no.
There were more songs in the session. It's 8, I think.
Is it
album
8?
is
1,
8
2,
songs.
3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Yeah, correct.
Yeah, so there were more songs in the session that didn't fit. But you know, then there was another like 20 or 30 songs I've written the past few years that are, you know, sort of different directions that I really want to sort of get into recording. So, yeah, you know, I hopefully not too far away, I might actually jump in the studio and hit those and just keep releasing music and making music, because that's,
I
you
love
know,
it.
part of the fun of actually doing it.
I gotta tell you, Adam, the world's a better place every time you're putting out these albums, buddy. So
Oh,
you gotta
dude, thank you.
keep them coming, man, because it's inspirational for those of us. I'm getting back into guitar and studying a lot and playing a lot, and so when I hear like your music, it, you know, it does something emotionally, and it's just like, man, intellectually I'm hearing things. So you know, kudos also for doing that and helping be part of that vibe out there. You know, that's
Thank you,
pushing.
man.
Yeah, it's pushing it forward. I don't want to get too esoterical in nature on it, but it is true to the fact that music, you know, can move you, and right,
Yeah.
and intellectually, emotionally, it takes you to that spot. So yeah, I just want to encourage you, man. Please,
Thank
just
you so much.
keep
Thank you.
keep making some more. Maybe instead of Beyond Reason, it'll be like The Next Reason. Part 2.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah,
I mean,
totally.
just keep that same kind of vibe going. Yeah, I mean, it's
Yeah.
so awesome, man. So as we're wrapping up, I just wanted to say
Yeah.
thank you so much for taking the time out of your schedule and everything, and you know,
my pleasure, man.
spending a few minutes with me. And
Thank you so much for, yeah, same thing, man.
is there anybody else you want to give a shout out to here? I'm gonna kind of talk for a second, and you can think about it if there's somebody else you want to give a shout out to.
Yeah.
But I just want to say thanks to all the viewers and everything. We've hit over 600,000 views already as a new channel, so we're getting there and doing pretty good on all platforms. So you can find me on TikTok and Instagram and, you know, Facebook and YouTube and all that kind of stuff. But find Adam Miller on Spotify, Apple Music, whatever streaming platform you can get on and hear his music.
Yeah.
Just want to encourage everybody to do that. So, Adam, is there anybody you want to give a little shout out to at the end of the show here?
Yeah, man, like this. Well, there's so many people. People should go back and check out Adam Levy's latest stuff. He's amazing. You know, I will mention, it's hard to find, but I mentioned it earlier in the episode, as a guitarist, James Muller, jazz guitar player. You know, there's definitely YouTube stuff. There's not so much on the streaming services, but like a super inspirational player, and definitely worth checking out. Yeah.
I'm definitely going to put them in the notes then.
Yeah, actually, the album I will mention, just because it's also a huge influence of mine, and this guy played bass on a little bit of my Shifting Units album as well. There's this guy called Steve Hunter, who's an Australian bass player and composer, and he has an album called Local World, which is on the streaming services and everywhere. And James Muller is the guitar player on that, and that album is really quite spectacular. So for the guitar and bass heads, definitely check that record out.
All right, sounds great. So all the listeners out there and the viewers, you know, check it out. I'll put as much as I can in the show notes for everybody out there. And Adam, stay on the line. And,
Yeah, will do.
Appreciate it. Thanks everybody for tuning in. Like I said, hit the subscribe, hit the bell, ring it.